I'm just so much more relaxed. Honestly, the main effect of paying off student loans was mental to me. I mean, it was such a burden. Like, it made me so paranoid and so fearful and so depressed. And being done with that is just so satisfying for me. And it also gave me a really great sense of accomplishment.
Welcome to the Student Loan Podcast.
Here, you'll find practical advice on tackling student loan debt, paying down your higher education expenses,
and inspiring stories about paying off student loans. We're your hosts, Daphne Vanessa
and Shamil Rodriguez. Hey everyone, welcome to the Student Loan Podcast. I'm Shamil Rodriguez.
And I'm Daphne Pierre.
And we have a great guest for you today. His name is Jordan Rothman, and he's a partner at his own firm that practices commercial, real estate, and personal injury. But what's most important, you might be asking, why is he even on this podcast then? Well, let me get to it. It's because he actually paid off just under $200,000 in student loan debt.
In under 4 years.
Yes. So Jordan is a force to be reckoned with, and we can't wait for him to share his story with you, to get you motivated, to share some of his tips and tricks, and to help you overcome that student loan debt burden. So Jordan, without further ado, let's take it away to you.
Thank you so much for that great introduction. I really appreciate it. Student loans is an unbelievable challenge. They were a huge millstone around my neck for years. And I thought about my student loans constantly. They were a huge part of my identity. There wasn't a day that went by that I didn't think about my student loans. So it was my singular goal to pay off my student loans as quickly as possible. Because of my circumstances, it made sense to do so rather than pursue IBR and other methods. And it took a lot of hard work. I saved a lot. I worked some part-time jobs, made a lot of sacrifices, and thankfully I was able to satisfy my goal of being debt-free before I was 30. So it was a really great thing.
That's amazing. So Jordan, walk us through your undergrad years, then you went to law school. Take the listeners through your story.
Sure, absolutely. I attended Brandeis University in Waltham, Massachusetts. While I was there, I got my BA in History and Politics. And I was very fortunate because at the time, Brandeis let a select amount of seniors get their master's degree during their senior year. Didn't have to take the GRE, didn't have to pay anything extra. And because I was getting so much financial aid from Brandeis, nice. I basically got a master's for free. So I graduated in 4 years, BA, MA, 2 for the cost of none, basically. I only paid for food to attend Brandeis, essentially.
Not bad.
Yeah, because I was an RA, and I talked about that.
Oh, wow.
Smart.
So
Yeah. I got the RA life.
I loved it. Yeah, it was great. I talk about that on my blog, Student Debt Diaries, and a lot of other things. But, I always wanted to go to Georgetown Law, and I just loved DC. I loved being in the center of it. And I applied to Georgetown Law, early decision. And I hope that would, make up for the fact that I didn't do well on the LSAT. And then they rejected me 2 weeks later. They didn't even really look at my application. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to get to Georgetown Law one way or the other. So I ended up going to another law school called Washington and Lee School of Law for my first year. And I did well enough after my first semester to be admitted to Georgetown Law, early action. I was able to have a little bit of fun during my second semester, which was great. Because Georgetown Law has an unbelievable need-based financial aid program. Usually financial aid isn't really available at the law school level. Usually it's only scholarships, but I love the Jesuits, because they do the good work and they looked after me, and I actually got 40% off the cost of attending Georgetown Law for need-based reasons. And it made attending Georgetown Law about $20,000 a year cheaper than attending my first law school. And they only reduced my financial aid by a marginal amount when I did my summer associate gig, where I was able to, bank some of that money and use it for other reasons. So they really went to bat for me, Georgetown Law. So that's my educational background. I got my JD from Georgetown Law, got admitted to the New York and New Jersey bars, and then I began my career.
Very nice.
Awesome.
So when did you start to accumulate student loan debt? Was it at the beginning as an undergrad, or did it only come from law school?
Great question. I came out of undergrad with about $21,000 in debt. And that's for a BA and an MA. And it's basically the cost of food, because I was able to get a lot of institutional financial aid. I was able to get some outside scholarships. I did get $50,000 a year from a foundation that doesn't exist anymore.
Nice.
They
Good timing.
they kind of went up in dust during the Great Recession. And then I got a lot of other smaller type awards. So I was able to keep my student loans to $21,000 after coming out of Brandeis University. Then my first year of law school was rather expensive. It was about, I believe, this is all approximate. I'm an old man, as I said. So I think my first year of law school was about $54,000. And then my second and third years were about like $36,000 because I had the financial aid. And again, Washington, D.C. has a higher cost of living too. So you got to count that. So I believe, everything being estimated, came out of law school, started my career with about $170,000+ in debt. And by the time I paid it off, with the interest accruing and whatnot, it had reached $197,000 and change. So yeah, that's basically my trajectory.
Amazing.
Sure. Good.
And so talk to me about the before student loans kicked in, the paying system anyways kicked in, the before and after. So basically while you were a student and after, what was your strategy? So while you were a student, you said that you had a combination of foundation. So you were applying to scholarships and you were getting institutional university financial aid. Walk through that process of what a student might need to do today.
Sure, absolutely. So it's really important to do your research, and it's not just important to do your research about one school. You got to do your research for every school to which you apply, even if you don't get accepted. When I was transferring law schools, for instance, I just sent out all of the materials to law schools to which I was applying, even though I didn't end up going there. So you have to fill out the FAFSA, any of the institutional forms that are necessary to get you financial aid. Oftentimes, those forms are due before the application itself is due. So getting any type of aid available from universities is really important. Then also, you have to minimize your living costs while you're a student. I mean, we all know people who do these summer abroad programs and London, and they party it up and they don't really care about racking up the debt. No, I never did that. I always tried to live within my means. And then also, I did have part-time work while I was a student. And again, why I love Georgetown, they gave me this amazing part-time job in the package room. Loved it. Oh, it was great. I got to meet all these people. Physical work. And
I worked in the mailroom in college.
Oh, yeah. So yeah, it's great. And
it's an awesome job.
And this was 9 years ago. They paid me $16.40, $16.80 an hour. It was
which is good.
That
was good back then.
That is good. Yeah,
that was fantastic.
I was like, it was like the greatest job I ever had. It covered all of my expenses and then some. So used all, and I did apply to be an RA in law school. I got accepted at my first law school, and then I pieced. So then I did at Georgetown, but I think they wanted someone who had been there all the years there because so I didn't get to be an RA there, which would have saved me a lot. But I did everything I could to reduce the amount of debt while I was a student because it's a hydra. Student loans is a hydra. The more debt you rack up, the more interest that accrues. So you really got to start early on, contain it, and then once you become into the workforce, you're stuck with kind of what you already had as a student. And then of course I can go into my strategies once I got to the workforce. That basically covers what I did when I was a student.
So it doesn't sound like you made payments towards interest while you were a student.
Great question. I actually just wrote an article for my blog about paying student loans.
I may have read that article.
I did. There was one student loan I paid while I was a student, towards the tail end, because I was making some money, and it really was more psychological. I just didn't. It somehow it got out of deferment, and I paid it off because of the psychological reasons, and also I think it may have helped with my credit. I can't verify that, but my credit limit did go up. So I mean, it's a possibility. If the credit bureaus see an account in deferment versus in good standing, it might help you a little bit. But mostly, I really didn't. think too much about student loans. I didn't log on every day, look at the balances. Obviously, I would go, I think that the Student Loan Clearinghouse has an amazing compendium of federal student loan information. I would look at it every now and then. But I only paid that one small student loan, and I think the monthly payment was like $50 to $100. It was manageable.
Nice. Okay. And so you graduate now. What does your pie chart look like of student loans? How many grad plus loans do you have versus unsubsidized loans, subsidized loans? Talk to us about the makeup, about what that looked like, and include interest rates if you remember.
Sure. No, absolutely. It's going back a long time, but my student loans ranged in interest rates from the highest was 7.8%.
Yep.
And the lowest was 3.25%, which is lower than my mortgage. So
right.
it was a pretty good, it was a pretty good rate. The vast majority of the debt was unsubsidized loans. There was a little bit of subsidized loans, but the vast majority was unsubsidized. And I'm so old. I even had one or two private loans.
Yeah.
Because before 2006, it was more common to go to the private market for student loans. And the interest rates were lower because the government was backing it. So the the lenders really didn't have to take much of a risk. So, maybe you as well, graduating in 2009, might have some experience with that.
I'm much younger than that.
Oh, yeah. But, you don't get the benefits of IBR necessarily from private loans unless you consolidate. So, I mean, there are benefits and disadvantages, but sometimes you would get lower interest rates. Just to summarize, the vast majority of it was high interest, 7.8% unsubsidized federal debt.
Nice. And so the mentality when you look at this huge mountain of debt and you know that it doesn't make sense, when do you take action to start paying it? And what was the primary strategy that you used to abolish your debt?
Great question. My student debt strategy evolved in stages as I evolved in my career. So the first part of my career, I was in big law. And in big law, you can make a good amount of money. The downside is, you don't have a life, and you have to go, you don't do like actual legal work. You're writing memos, you have to report up the chain. And there's a lot of downsides too. And you can read that in Above the Law as well. But the good thing is you can make a high salary. And the people in big law make even more money than I made in 2012, 2013. So my main goal and I only worked in big law for about 13 months. Okay. So my experience in big law was pretty limited. So while I was working in big law, I tried to live off of like $2,700 a month, which in the New York City area is difficult. But
wow. I commend you in New York. There are rents that are higher than that in New York.
I would be like $10 a day on food. That's it. My grandma was like, what? I live on like half of that. And I was like, what? Like, I'm 6'9" and I'm over 200 pounds, so it's different. But so basically, if I could do that, if I could live on $2,700 a month, I was able to put $5,000 a month to student loans.
Oh wow!
So and I did that. For the entirety of the time I was in big law. I went to the high interest student loans, and I just basically wiped out a major part of that. Now, when I left big law, I had to be a lot more creative with what I did to work on the student loans. And when I left big law, I still had a pretty high burden. I had about half of my student loans remaining, but that really helped set the stage for my future student loan payoff.
Absolutely. And so going back just a little bit, did you choose big law because you wanted to pay off your student loans? Or...
Yeah, I really did. Yeah, I really did. I really did. Yeah.
That's okay.
No, it's okay.
Like,
I mean,
because I always wanted to be like a street lawyer, the type of lawyer that goes to court, the type of lawyer who's wheeling and dealing. I didn't like the thought of being in an office, writing memos, doing legal research, doing doc review. But I came out of law school with all this debt. Georgetown had a really good placement record with a lot of New York, New Jersey law firms. So I just went with it. And it was primarily motivated. Now, I will say to you, I did get a good experience working on like multi-billion-dollar lawsuits, like huge cases. And it has informed my strategies as a lawyer today. I always think about appeals. I am very good. Oh, you know, I don't want to get into the weeds, you know, for people
No,
who
yes,
aren't.
let's get into the weeds.
Yeah.
You know, for people who don't know about the law, you know, but I'm a master of the dark arts of spoliation, which is basically if someone destroys evidence, you know, you get into trouble. I am a master of that. And estoppel arguments, you know, trying to take what someone said years ago and use it against them.
Yep.
These are all arguments that big law firms use more than street law firms.
Yep.
And I've tried to apply those methods in what I do today. So it wasn't, you know, I definitely was enriching experience, but it was also enriching in money, you know, as well. And that really helped pay off my student loans.
That's awesome.
So when you went from big law, did you just go right into your own firm, or did you go to some mid-sized firms in between?
Great question. So I went to a few different firms. The first firm that I went to was like a 30 attorney New York, New Jersey law firm. And I was making like less than half of what I made in big law at this firm. But the great thing about this firm was I had 40 cases, you know, at my peak, and those were my cases. I did everything on them: the appeals, the depositions, the court appearances, and I took a lot of pride in those cases. And I had a lot of great victories, a few defeats, but you know, I'm not gonna, you know, because people usually.
This is true.
You're human.
And sometimes they would win the battle, but I would win the war type defeats, you know. So it was fantastic. So the firm, it was kind of understood, like, look, our clients don't pay us a lot, so we can't pay you a lot, but here's two benefits. One, you're going to work like 9 to 5, not on the weekends. It's going to be a very, you know, ordinary, you know, not ordinary, but more traditional work schedule. Number two is you're going to get a lot of experience. If I want to do federal work or appeals, I got that. One time I told my boss, you know, I really want to learn more about New Jersey because I've learned a lot about New York. He's like, okay, here's some New Jersey cases. So, you know, it was like, and it is different. It's different. And, you know, so like, it was a really great learning experience. Now, at the end of that, I spent about 2 years there. And then, should I go forward with like my career? Oh,
no,
great,
absolutely.
great.
Yeah, absolutely. We want to make sure we're allowing for audience members that have a similar track or want to know what that life is like.
Sure, absolutely. So then I went to a firm called Sedgwick, which is now bankrupt. Departed. I wasn't there when they went bankrupt, and fortunately, I was only an associate because, the partners got clawed back. They had to pitch some into the bankruptcy estate. But it was, so Sedgwick was a little bit of a bigger firm. I think at that point it had like 300 attorneys all over the country. They had an office in London. They had like an office in the Caribbean, so that was a bigger firm. And then before that went under, because I guess people saw the writing on the wall, I went to a boutique trial firm in New Jersey. Which was pretty cool. It was a bunch of people that I worked with at Sedgwick to form this firm, and that was pretty cool. And then eventually I started my own law firm about 19 months ago now. And then 6 months after that, my brother joined me, and it's been a really great experience.
That's really
nice. Very nice. So when you were, I wanted to kick back for a moment. When you were looking to tackle this, did you say, I want to have it in this time frame? Where you're like 30 years old, can't have student loan debt? Like, walk us through what your mindset was like at that point.
So I used to have a list of life goals. All right. Don't like, it was a written list. It was a written list of like,
I like it.
I love it.
Wait, you're saying it wasn't saving your phone? No, wow. You
visit all 50 states. It was like, I wanted to go to a certain number of reunions for high school and college. Like it was weird stuff. And the number one thing on that list was pay off student loans by the time you're 30. It was the first thing that I put on that list. And I wrote that list when I was, in college, or I began to write it. I updated it. But it had always been on my radar. It seems, honestly, I thought if I stayed in big law, I would be able to pay off my student loans when I was like 28. But after I left big law, I had to get more creative. And I thought it would be possible, maybe if I just relied on my salary and saving techniques, I thought maybe by the time I'm 32, 33, I might pay it off with a lot of sacrifice. So I really had to be creative. But to get back to your point, it was a long-standing desire for me to be debt free by the time I was 30, and I beat it by 10 months. So I had a little bit of room to spare.
Nice, congrats.
Fantastic.
What do you think gave you that inspiration? Was it your parents? Was it like your community? Was it just, from within? Where did that come
Great
from?
question. Student loans made me feel horrible. They made me feel so bad. And honestly, I've written articles about this, that you shouldn't feel like I did. Like I really internalized student loans as part of my identity, as like, oh my God, who's ever going to love me? Who's ever going to want me? I've got all this debt. It's a millstone around my neck. I mean, it made me feel horrible and resentful. And it was so bad on my personality and my mentality.
Mhm.
And, I feel so much more liberated and happier now. So I knew like I couldn't go too far into my life with these student loans. I just wanted to, enjoy life and get rid of them as soon as possible. And I thought that 30 was kind of an achievable goal. So that's sort of why I did that.
Cool. So I had a quick follow-up. What were you had mentioned creative ideas on how to continue to pay off your student loan debt after big law. What were some of those creative ideas that you used?
I think the thing that distinguishes my student loan narrative from a lot of people on the internet is I ended up doing a lot of part-time jobs. And the interesting thing about part-time jobs is, it lets you pay off student loans without it massively affecting your lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
So if you can get into part-time work, you can have the coffee. Everyone says it. Everyone thinks they're so smart by saying, oh yeah, don't forget the coffee. But people know that, But I never did that. I don't want to, give a sponsor, to there are certain places I love, and I never had to give that up because, and by the way, it's so marginal too anyways, but I never had to give that up because I had revenue from other sources. Some of the part-time jobs I tried weren't as fruitful as others, but I definitely gave it a shot. And the good thing about working at a firm that was kind of a 9-to-5 pace was I could devote the time to the part-time work. I would say that time is a more valuable resource than money. Why? Because you can convert time into money if you have the right, avenues to do it. And you can also use it for your own leisure or whatever you want to do with it. So I had more time, and I was able to figure out a way to devote that extra time into making money. And that had a massive impact on my student loans.
Awesome.
Very nice.
Can you talk to us about some of the more profitable, less profitable opportunities that you experienced when finding more revenue sources?
Sure, absolutely. So the main side hustles that I pursued, which were more profitable, was number one, I worked with a leading bar review company. Basically, a bar review is basically a course that prepares. I know you two know it, but I just
No, it's good. It's good. Yeah, this is good to explain.
The bar review is a course that helps students studying for the bar exam. This exam that lawyers have to take. Bar candidates have to take to become lawyers. So I've worked with a leading bar review company for about 6 years. Honestly, I really started the blogging, after I paid off my student loans. But I have to say, blogging has shown me that it really can be a decent revenue source. I would say it's my second biggest revenue source right now. I have the student loan blog, Student Debt Diaries, and I also work for Above the Law, and that you can make it work. I mean, it's making a successful blog is really hard. It requires a lot of luck as well as hard work. But if you can link up with a successful blog, or if you have the determination to make your own blog, it can be very lucrative. I did some freelancing opportunities. I tried to work with Amazon Mechanical Turk and, $5. Yeah. Actually, Mechanical Turk, I like it a lot. It's tough though, because the work that's lucrative and fun is difficult to get, because when they post it, you guys know about that? You guys have tried it?
Yeah. Before it worked with Amazon.
Yeah, no,
I mean, he does because he's old.
I'll take it.
Amazon Mechanic. I mean, it's something you should look into. I mean, especially you can make like $10, $15 an hour, you know, if you have the right work available to you, maybe even more. But you need to have the right work, the right skill, and the patience. And obviously I tried a lot of other things like TaskRabbit. I never tried the delivery service things that are more popular. Yeah, that's more popular now than it was 4 or 5, 6 years ago. I would say. And so that was not part of my narrative. But if I had student loans now, I definitely would try that because I do have a car and it is sitting in my parking spot unused a lot of time. So that's basically how I made extra money on the side. And then if you have a main job that can cover all your living expenses, everything you make on the side goes to student loans, plus the amount of money from your main job that you can devote to student loans. So it's a really good situation. Can I say one point about making extra money?
Absolutely, yeah.
So I wrote an article about this a while ago. I didn't really realize this until pretty far into my student loan saga. There is an old adage that a dollar saved is a dollar earned. But in actuality, a dollar saved is more than a dollar earned, because you have to pay taxes on anything you earn. And if you're self-employed, you have to pay even more taxes, because typically if you're an employee, your employer pays certain Social Security taxes. But as an independent contractor, you have to pay all of that yourself. So just keep in mind that I would say, I do say, like, my narrative is different and I did pursue this route, but do keep in mind that saving money is important, because the money you save is in equivalent form is more valuable than the money you earn.
Right. So I have so many follow-up questions, but I'm going to start with, before we get into the nitty-gritty of how you monetize the blogs, I would love to discuss, for people that are in careers where maybe it's 9 to 5, but maybe they work at a company that has restrictive covenants preventing them from side hustling. What is the approach there? Is there an approach, and does this strategy still work for those people?
That is a very good question. I never worked at a company where I knowingly had any of that type of agreement in place. I worked at a few firms that had employee handbooks. Did I ever read the employee handbook? No. And also the employee handbook usually says we are not a contract, because they don't want you to be an employee by contract. They want you to be employee at will. But anyways, I never signed a covenant like that. And I review a few employment contracts. They're out there. They're out there. Physician contracts are definitely out. Have that included. I would say that if you do have such a provision in place and you do want to pursue, side hustles, you need to be very transparent with your supervisors about it. And in one of my firms in particular, I was very transparent with my supervisor about, paying off my student loans and working the side hustles. In other firms, I was not, because they really were like, we own your time. You work for us. And they were very, if you read my Above the Law, articles, you can see sort of my attitudes about some of my firms versus others. But, and so I had to kind of keep it on the DL, and just shut my mouth and not talk about it, which is fine. So I think it's a case-by-case basis. And if you do have such a provision in place, do your research, see what it is, and be very transparent with your boss. And honestly, you can say, look, I'm working a lower wage because I'm making this other amount of money. That was kind of what my understanding at one of my firms. I was like, all right, I don't mind. I'm never going to confess you about my lower salary. I never did. I was like, don't worry. I work for you for 40 hours and then I have this other avenue. So you'd be surprised how bosses, they worry about their bottom lines more than just their pride. I think it would be very receptive.
Interesting. That's great feedback.
Quick follow-up on that in terms of the communication. How about the communication with your colleagues that wanted to go out? I know you were cutting back on a lot of things. What were some of those conversations like? Figure out have your coffee and go to the bar, or was at least I covered my coffee, but I'm not going out every night,
I gotta tell you, I do have a certain sense of shame with some of the frugality that I had over the course of my earlier years paying off student loans. And I did miss out on a lot of opportunities because of that. Going out, going to weddings, going to bachelor parties. My roommate was my brother. I never bought a sponge. I never bought a trash bag. He just bought everything. And, it was just this, I really had tunnel vision about student loans, and I do have a sense of shame about it. And usually when I go out now, I'm very open with my money, in terms of like trying to like repay my friends and family for like these years where I was very frugal. So going back to your point, I would say student loan repayment is a balance. You don't want to be as extreme as I was at times. You really do need to strike a balance. So if you go out, like maybe you could have a drink, but not have a meal. I remember one time I went out to a bar and someone asked, like, are you going to get anything to eat? And I said, no, I have food at home and I'm trying to save money. And it was just such a mood killer. No one wanted to. I felt so bad. This was 7 years ago, I think. So please don't think I'm the same person. People are lost. But now looking back and I'm like, oh my God, like this person wanted to go out and have a good time. We were watching football, like who wants to hear that? So you do really need to get a sense of the room, and life is all about moderation and balance. So you should keep that in mind.
Awesome. Such great feedback. I want to jump into the monetization of blogging to pay off student loans. So you said that while it wasn't something that you leveraged as much before, today you think that it's a great tool towards killing student loan debt. So what are those monetization strategies for blogging that people in our audience can use to pay off their student loans?
Sure. So let me just say that I receive far more money for my work with writing for other blogs than I do for my own student loan blog. But I was able to get those positions because I had a student loan blog. So I think the key to my monetization was just like having a portfolio of work to showcase what I could do, what I could write about, and then I was able to parlay that into getting other writing opportunities. But I'm not gonna lie, I make some money off of the student loan blog. So I mostly rely, I don't like over monetization. I never really liked, I really like my blog as a brand, I didn't want to impugn the brand. So I never really I don't have the things at the bottom of the screen that annoy people, or these are the links, you got to click on the links, and you got to do this and that. I really or the thing that pops up with the newsletter. No, I don't do any of that. Mostly I just rely on, Google ads. I do have some affiliate links. And when I have affiliate links, I don't just say link. I'm like, this is an affiliate link. Yeah. And if you click on the link, I can receive money. Yeah. Use for this website. Like some people say just like put ad or something. No, I go all out, Yeah. Because if people want to support the website, they can go through that. What else do I do? That's about it. Affiliate links and ads are basically it, and the ability to parlay that into other opportunities.
Fantastic. And then in the other opportunities, you're paid per post or per
right.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah, per post, exactly. So the amount that you can be paid per post varies so widely based on your experience, the length of the post, the content. Keep in mind also that blogging for other blogs can be valuable because it can build valuable backlinks back to your own blog, which can increase your search engine optimization and can therefore affect your back end. So doing blogging for other blogs isn't just beneficial in the direct monetization of that, but also in a lot of indirect ways.
Nice. So I have a question for you, Jordan. Are you debt free completely today?
Great question. I have a mortgage.
That's fair.
I have a mortgage. I'm very debt averse. I am very debt averse. I spent 20 months after paying off student loans, completely debt free. And then I was paying so much money to live in an apartment that I bought a condo. And so I have a mortgage. Mortgages are so different from student loans. And the main reason is, there's so many reasons, because the main one is you're never really in debt as long as the value of your property doesn't go underwater. I put enough down on the condo that I don't think that's a problem. So I strongly believe that, I'm not in debt in that regard. And also, you get tax benefits from mortgages, and, everyone needs a place to live. So, I mean, it's different. But I don't have a car loan. I lease, and I'm hoping that I'll be able to buy a car when my lease runs out. I was waiting until this is another stupid thing about me. I just get in these these tunnel visions sometimes. I was like, I'm not going to buy a car until it's electric and self-driving.
Yes.
That's on the horizon. Why would I waste my money? And I'm really hoping that it's going to come up. I mean,
Come on, Elon.
Yeah, exactly. I hope I'm not out of my mind, because if you buy a gas car, I mean, things are on the horizon. So I'm hoping soon enough that will be the case. Then I will buy a car, and I will not be using a car loan. I will be buying it in cash because I'm very, very debt averse. No credit card debt, no other debt of any kind. I wouldn't even want my law firm. My law firm's not in debt, I'm not, no debt. I mean, some law firms use lines of credit and whatnot, not us. I'm very averse to it. And I think that's the experience of paying off my student loans.
Fantastic.
So what is life like, Jordan, just to help give our listeners that visual of what it feels like to be debt free? What changed for you? What were some of what did you do with all this extra income? Well, not income, but necessarily, but time and funds that you were, really dumping into your student loan debt. How did that change your perspective and your habits?
So the day I paid off my student loans was a very good day, in my life. It was in August of 2016. I didn't really, I probably wasn't so smart in paying off my student loans at that time. I liquidated pretty much all of my assets to do it, but I was like, I cannot be in debt anymore. I have the money. I'm just going to, throw it all at the student loans. And it was very awesome. However, I was in a very vulnerable position financially at that point. So I didn't really get to experience the benefit of student loan repayment until, 6 months later, when I was able to save enough money to put myself in a comfortable position, such that I felt financially secure. But the money, honestly, it went to other goals in my life. Then I wanted to buy a condo. So I just did the same methods that I used to pay off my student loans to save money. I was able to buy a condo. I had to do it all by myself. I had no help from anyone, so I just, got the money together. I paid for that. Some people have help from family, I had nothing, I just had to just do it, and so it was tough. And then after that, I wanted to start my own law firm. So that required a lot of money too, because I honestly, I was like, is this going to work? I don't know. It could fail. I could be living on my brother's couch, I don't know. So I saved up quite a bit of money before I started my own law firm. And I'm still in denial that it's succeeding so well, so I'm still kind of I can't believe this is happening. Is this going to continue to happen? When can I be totally secure in that? Yeah. So I would say that I never really stopped doing the methods that I was doing for years. However, I spend so much money on food now and other things that I used to never spend money on. I go out all the time. I have a lot more fun. I don't think about money at all. Everyone thinks about money, but not to the extent that I used to. And I'm just so much more relaxed. Honestly, the main effect of paying off student loans was mental to me. I mean, it was such a burden. It made me so paranoid and so fearful and so depressed. And being done with that is just so satisfying for me. And it also gave me a really great sense of accomplishment. So it was mostly kind of a mental effect, and it was very positive to my psyche.
How did you keep yourself motivated to get out of that doldrums when you were really feeling that pressure of those student loans? What were some of your tactics that maybe some of our listeners can take and apply it to their own situations right now?
Yeah, that's a really good point. I mean, the thing to keep in mind is you have to understand that you're not alone in student loans. People don't ordinarily talk about student loans with their peers, and you can't talk about student loans to older people in your family because it was different decades ago. I mean,
different.
Yes. $100 a semester or something.
Yes, literally.
I paid off my student loans by, working 10 hours a week. And I'm like, what? No way.
Yeah, my dad
people legitimately.
I just paid for it by working.
People used to be able to do that. And as an aside, what really frustrates me is a lot of people in previous generations don't understand that the cost of education has gone up way higher than the cost of inflation. So in real dollars, it's much, it's impossible to do it now, and it was back then. But going back to your point, I'm very fortunate that I'm a triplet. So I have 2 brothers, one of whom is a physician who, but he had way more debt than I did, way more debt. And he never let it bother him. He never let it bother him.
Really?
Amazing.
Okay.
Oh my God, he is such a cool cat. I really hope you guys get the chance to meet him. He is such a cool cat. And then my other brother did, he had less debt than me, but it definitely impacted his mentality. But knowing that there were other people in my situation was really beneficial. I would try to find support groups among people that I knew. Obviously, when you're in a group of lawyers, chances are that many of them have massive student loans.
Yeah.
So, but you have to be careful because on the other hand, a lot of people don't like to talk about finance. A lot of people don't like to talk about debt. It makes people depressed. So I would say if you're struggling with the mentality of, the bad mentalities associated with student debt, find your support group, find your tribe, get help from either siblings, people in your family, or support from, your peers who might also be in a similar situation.
Very well
Awesome.
said.
Yeah, no, I think that's fantastic advice. People need to feel some sort of comfort identifying with people. That's something that, are there support groups out there for student loan debt?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was kind of what I wanted to do with Student Debt Diaries. I wanted people to talk about it,
Yeah.
this is going to be a resource. This is kind of going to be, people are going to talk about their student debt situations, and people are going to be able to support each other because it's important to find that. And it's a lot of times it's easier said than done.
No, I think you bring up a good point there. There are a lot of online opportunities that people can connect to or connect with other people that might be in that situation. And it really is important to find, like you said, find your tribe, find some sort of support system so you're not in it by yourself. But I wanted to bring up a point that you brought up here that is really interesting that we've heard in other podcast episodes that we've heard is, there is this like secret privacy, shame, hidden around talking about your finances and student loan debt. But on the other side of that spectrum, you have people that can be sometimes complete strangers and they're talking about their intimate details of their lives. And you're wondering, wait, which one is going to have a much longer impact on you?
Right.
We'll be talking about your finances. Is that
Right.
something that helped you because they were your brothers? You were able to talk to them about that? Or did you find people outside of that to help?
You're completely right in that statement. There is this negative perception around student loans and people who have them. And I got to tell you, there's also a negative stigma attached to people who work side hustles because people are like, oh man, if you work side hustles, you must not have a good main job. You must be like really struggling,
Agree.
And
Yep.
I don't understand that at all. If you work side hustles, it means you're a grinder. You're a hustler. You're a mover and a shaker.
Mm-hmm.
So I think you're absolutely right. And again, like a lot of people, there's no reason to have stigma around student loans, because a lot of people have them, especially in our generation, because we're older, people were like flat out lied to about employment.
Not
outcomes.
me.
Oh, yeah. You have no excuse. No, I'm kidding. But like people were lied to about employment outcomes. Like law school misrepresented their data legitimately. So like, how can you say like, oh, you knew what you were doing or this and that? It was your fault alone. So there's a lot of reasons why you shouldn't feel bad about student loans, but it was better to talk about that with my brothers. One of my brothers did work a part-time job during medical school. So I was really able to connect with that and connect with him about that. And then one of my brothers, actually, he, for a period of time, went to school, college full-time and worked full-time, 50 hours a week, working and then going to school. And so I was really inspired by him.
Wow.
So yeah, it is easier to talk to family than friends sometimes. So yeah, you're absolutely right in that regard.
Jordan, can you go into that aspect? I think just so listeners know that Jordan not only is a partner in his own firm, but he also contributes online to Above the Law. What are some of those, and you have your own blog, studentdebtdiaries.com.
Yes.
What are some of you said that where some of the schools fudge the numbers, let's say, or conflate the numbers as to what type of employment opportunities you're going to receive after you graduate. Can you talk a little bit about that? I feel like that's going to be covered on Above the Law at some point for sure.
They've been covering it a lot for the past like 5-7 years. And I believe I think it's called Law School Professors, or Law School Transparency is a great website that covers that. Law school professors have covered, a lot of people in the legal community have, and it's really important to keep in mind. I think that a lot of the the meddling has been tampered down in recent years, but there was a period of time where a lot of law schools were providing misguided data about their employment statistics and employment rates. They were counting people who didn't have legal jobs as, employed after 9 months or after graduation. They were using a small sample size of their classes when coming up with median salaries, but the people who they sampled had high salaries, and a lot of people in the graduating class didn't. I mean, there were all these games that people played because they wanted to boost their rankings, they wanted to boost their applicants, and so this really went on for years. The American Bar Association has really clamped down on this. There's higher standards for transparency now. There was a lot of litigation in class actions over this. I don't believe that a lot of them were successful, unfortunately. But it's definitely, I would definitely say that you need to take any statistics that you see from schools with a grain of salt, because they have a motivation to, increase their applicant pool and to attract applicants. And the vast majority of schools are very, very honorable. And let's face it, I mean, universities are nonprofits. They serve the greater good. They're great institutions, but there could be certain institutions that might, kind of fudge the numbers. So just take those numbers with a grain of salt.
Awesome. Very true.
No, very true. And so with the Student Debt Diaries, would you mind, with the Student Debt Diaries, would you mind going into some of the stories? Do you interact with a lot of your readers? Or what are some of the, talk about some of the members of your community that you help through your blog?
Yeah, sure. So great question. So Student Debt Diaries, I've connected with people all across the country and across the world. Basically there's only 2 writers for Student Debt Diaries. It's me and my triplet brother, Adam, because I was able to, he's my triplet brother. So he was able to come on board. And I have to be completely honest. I've written 162 articles. He's written 9. His articles account for the majority of the views to the website. He's doing great. And I'm so proud of him. And he took a chance on me, and I'm just so happy for him. So we both received emails. Some of the emails I get are really heartbreaking, to be completely honest. I mean, I'll never forget this one email I got from a parent, because I do some articles for parents. She said that, she paid her kids, college education, and she expected to be paid back. And now the kid is reneging on it, and she's threatening to not see her grandkid, over it. And it was really sounded like a horrible situation. I've also talked to, people who were misguided into like for-profit PhD programs and spent a lot of money, because usually PhD programs are fully funded. You don't have to go out of pocket for them, but some for-profit universities do have PhD programs, and now she can't get work in her field. And obviously, whenever I communicate with her, I was like, Dr. So-and-so, I gave all the respect I could. I get emails from, like, I'll write an email on Above the Law about, how lawyers have it worse than doctors, or doctors have it worse than lawyers. Right. And then I'll get an email, oh no, veterinarians have it worse than everyone. And then odontologists have it worse than anyone. I was like, what's an odontologist? Yeah. So, and that's like, it's a kind of dentist. So I would get like all these emails about that. So it's been really great. It's been really great connecting with the readers. They've been so supportive of Student Debt Diaries, and it's really cool to know that you've had an impact. And I'm sure you two feel the same way as well. I'm sure it's great to be part of a community of people who are dealing with student loans.
No, absolutely. So how about walk us through? I know you said your brother also dealt, or both of them dealt with, your brothers dealt with student loan debt. So what were some of their strategies? Did they take the same approach, or just...
Yeah, sure. So, and my brother, and I'm going to try to get them on this program, by the way, especially Adam, because he's like,
cool.
Yeah. He's great. And of course my other brother, Brad, but my brother, Adam, and he's written articles about this for my blog. he actually is one of the few people who worked a job in medical school, which is very difficult. He tutored high school students during medical school in a lot of different stuff. He actually was so good at it and so good at the SAT that he gave lectures to high school students about it.
Oh, wow.
You know, in his like early 20s as like a, you know, a med student. And that, you know, medical school is, you know, very difficult. But my brother is a great student, and he is now a very skilled physician, and he was able to do it. And then my brother, Brad, he was able to work full-time for parts of his college career and go to school full-time, which was extremely challenging. And he was also having fun full-time too, you know, so it's very difficult. And then, you know, he was in Florida. He went to college in Florida, you know.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah, yeah. And then, and he was able to get in-state status, which helped with his tuition costs. And he was also able to get an institutional scholarship over time because his GPA was high enough for that. And I'm really proud of him for that. So we all had to work with each other, you know, because of student loans, and we had a similar, you know, family background and economic background. So yeah, I mean, I'm very proud of my triplet brothers, and hopefully you'll hear from them yourself.
Rothman squared, cubed.
We call ourselves the Rothmen. We're the Rothmen.
Oh, the Rothman.
Because we have my older brothers are twins. And
yes.
So there's 5 of us total. Yeah. We're the
That
Rothman.
is
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Amazing family.
Yeah.
So cool. I realized that we didn't really go into amortization schedules for, do you remember what they were, and were you kind of playing against the clock? It sounded like you used the avalanche method, so perhaps that was of interest to you.
Yeah. I never deviated from the 10-year repayment plan on any of my student loans because, you know, I was paying it really fast.
Right.
I do believe that having, and I never, you know, obviously the vast majority of my student loans were eligible for income-driven repayment plans.
Right.
But I never, you know, like I with the side hustles and the main job, I just didn't think it was advantageous to do that over the course of, you know, 20 years or whatever, because I wasn't working in a public interest field. But I believe that I saved around $50,000 in interest by paying off my student loans in 3 years, 10 months versus 10 years on the standard repayment plan. And as you both know, like no one stays on the standard repayment plan. It's very rare. You know, most people need longer than that. That's like the default plan that everyone gets put into, but it's very aspirational. But even on that repayment plan, I saved $50,000 by paying off the student loans earlier.
Large amount of money.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Cool.
Yeah.
So you've paid off your student loans. You're living the life, it sounds like.
Catching up on lost time.
Internet famous. Where do you go from here? What's next for Jordan?
Yeah, so I've really enjoyed working with Above the Law. I've been running their morning docket since late October of 2019, and it brings me a lot of joy, to be honest, because when I was a baby lawyer in 2012, every morning at 8:30 a.m. or 8:45, I would look for the morning docket, and I loved it, and I always read it. And I like the morning docket because not only is it like a news summary, but it's supposed to be like kind of humorous, you know.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not saying I'm a funny guy, but you know, I try. I always try to like at least the first story and the last story, and maybe some thrown in. But I like it because it's good. It's like, you know, there's other services that do like, you know, news summaries. Yeah. But I always liked how the morning docket was like funnier, you know, because obviously like other legal outlets do the same thing, but ours is funnier. So I hope, but like they don't try because, you know, the whole thing about Above the Law is it's not necessarily a traditional, you know, like news website. It has like a little bit of a spin to it, you know, a little bit of like it's a little bit snarkier, you know, funnier, you know,
almost like The Onion for the New Yorkers out there. It's like The Onion, but real news.
Yeah. It's kind of like, I mean, it reports the news, the real news, but it's like, it has like this, it's a little bit less serious. How about that?
Sure.
It's a little bit less serious. So now I do that. It brings me a lot of joy. And in terms of student loans, I still do the Student Debt Diary. And I gotta tell you, it's challenging. You know, a lot of blogs don't make it. I've been doing this for over 3 years. I've never missed a Monday where an article isn't put up. And that is very challenging. A lot of blogs that I know, like I have a friend who started, you know, a cryptocurrency blog. And, you know, after like, you know, 3 months, he's like, I ran out of ideas. And I was like,
Really?
I've been doing this for 3 years, man. Like this, and it's always coming. It's always coming. You know, there's always new ideas. So, yeah, like it's been a great experience, and I hope to continue doing it and talking about student loans.